Well, today finds me the third week of March doing some more studying of the three common ash trees to the Ohio Valley, Lower Great Lakes, and Appalachian regions. I started with blue ash, which is mostly Ohio Valley and Lower Great Lakes in limestone areas only. And we've got some blue ash to look at today. I've also found several good examples of green ash and white ash to study. We're going to concentrate mostly on the green ash today. I do have some white ash to do a branch comparison with and a bud comparison with. And I'm back at the Fort Ancient State Memorial, which has hundreds of acres of good woods. Not too many invasives in this particular stream valley here, but a large variety of trees. And a very peaceful place to make these videos on an early spring day. We'll still call this winter identification because it is still the leafless season and these ash tree buds have not started to swell or open yet. So what I'm going to show today would be applicable anytime during the leafless season, from late October till early April. Let's continue on. And just a few hundred yards up the valley or hollow here from the introduction to this video set, I've got all three common ashes to non-swamp habitats of the Appalachian Mountains, Lower Great Lakes, and Ohio Valley. There are some swamp-dwelling ashes, the black ash and the pumpkin ash, which I may get to, but I'm going to concentrate on these. These are the more common trees that you'd find while doing outdoor activities, like mushroom hunting or regular hunting or hiking or camping or whatever you like to do, mountain biking. That's what this channel is about. And I started with blue ash a few weeks ago. Still looked like winter then. We had a lot of snow in February and it was below average temperatures. Well, now we've kind of flipped the switch and it's in the 60s today. And let's concentrate on a review of the blue ash first here. Here's our blue ash sapling here with those obvious wings or ridges on the new growth. You can see it's got 4 of them if you were to count them and look all the way around the branch, pretty much on the new growth. This is getting some partial sunshine here. There's a break in the forest canopy above us here, allowing this little sapling to get started. But I do find these saplings, even in full shade environments in this particular part of this park here, it just seems like it's a real common place for ash trees to try to get established. But this one's growing aggressively. It's got wings even several inches down from the lead tip here. So the larger blue ash trees that I filmed did not have that. It only had it at the very end and sometimes not at all. But the scaly bark was the giveaway. Well, right around the bend here, right across the branch here, we've got a green ash. And one way you can remember green ash in the winter time is it looks like it has a chocolate chip on the top of the lead branch here, or the start of this sapling. And the little places where the leaves came out last year and fell off have a branch scar that looks like a chocolate sprinkle or a very small chocolate chip at the top. And the white ash, right a couple dozen feet away from those saplings, has almost a U shape underneath the bud. Now this camera has a hard time focusing when there's a background. So I've got some of these cut from another location where we can study them closer, but I'm just trying to introduce these in their common habitat here, which is in a hardwood forest with some partial sun, is where these little saplings like to get established. And unfortunately, the larger specimens of the green ash and the white ash in this particular part of the Mid-Ohio Valley have all succumbed to the emerald ash borer. So really the only way we can learn these trees around here is not bark up the right tree, but bud up the right tree, because the bark is often missing and has been lost from the mature trees. I'm going to look at some mature green ash trees in a few minutes here that still have a few branches that are alive that we can look at. But we'll pause for just a moment. Let's look at get a better view of some of the branches of these trees. And we'll just take one last look at this four wings on this blue ash before we step aside. And I've got the branches from another location, from the green ash and white ash. I try to film these, make these videos in natural habitats and not like along roads and stuff. But often you can find the saplings of these trees growing just about anywhere. And sometimes the saplings have real obvious features that can help us learn these plants. And you know, early spring, been warm lately. Got some hepatica blooming here March 22nd. Not uncommon to see this in March. One of the early risers in the spring wildflower display. So what I've got here is a very aggressive sapling from a green ash on the left. Again, it has what looks like chocolate chips on the top for the, it's called the terminal bud. And just below it is where the leaf would come out on the side of the branch. And just above where that leaf comes out, it looks like a small chocolate chip. It's the color of a chocolate chip. This white ash has a similar looking terminal bud here. But where the leaf would come out, it's a U shape. So it looks like the chocolate chip is inside a small U, or a U-shaped scar where the leaf came out. We'll study the leaves on these trees in a few months here, probably in May, and we can really see how that shape would indicate which tree it is as well. But for now, that's just one way to tell the sapling of a white ash from that of a green ash. And again, a lot of times the mature trees are dead or dying, and they're often sending out little root sprouts that we can use this same method to identify, because the bark on these trees is quite similar and could be confused without other means. Let's continue on. And now that we've looked at some of the smaller examples of the green ash and the white ash, let's compare a green ash with a blue ash that are medium-sized trees. This blue ash here, as a review, has this scaly bark. At this intermediate age, it doesn't develop furrows till it gets much older. This looks like little scales, look like the scales you'd find on the back of a lizard or maybe even a snake. And these trees are least affected by the emerald ash borer. They're still alive. They're still hanging in there at this point. They're the last ash standing, and hopefully they will continue to stand. Just across the way here, I've got a green ash that's really living up to its name because it's covered in moss. And in this particular valley here, even a tree that isn't got the name green associated with it will often get this moss growing on it. So making it easy to remember that this is a green ash. This one's kind of been a little bit beaten up by some ice storms perhaps. It does have opposite branching up top. That's how I can tell it is an ash and not a walnut or a butternut or any other tree with this kind of bark. And I was able to reach up here and retrieve a branch to prove that it was a green ash. What we've got here is that terminal bud that looks like a chocolate chip. Let's get here where we got a better background here. And we'll put this down here. This camera does get confused when there's other objects behind the object I'm trying to film. So there's our terminal bud that looks like a chocolate chip, and where the first leaf came off, you can see that smaller chocolate chip on top of the branch scar. The branch scar is got a round bottom and a flat top, as opposed to the U shape of that of the white ash. So that's how we can tell them apart. And usually that's enough to reach our goal. Let's go right down here. I got a couple more examples of green ash and blue ash to look at. And here's a small green ash here, about 4 or 5 inches around. Let's take a look at the bark. This one isn't quite as mossy. It has ridges and furrows, but there's often little cross blocks where the ridges and furrows get interrupted. The white ash is less likely to have that. And we got another one just a little further down here. Let's pause one more time. Here's a green ash. Again, it's got some moss on it. That's more because of where it's growing, not because it's green from moss. That's not where the name comes from. It's more based on what the foliage looks like during the growing season, which we'll get to in a couple months here. Again, we got ridges and furrows. They can make like a diamond shape is what the textbook says, but it's often interrupted in places. The bark tends to break free a little more easily with some thumb pressure than that of a white ash. I'm not finding a lot of large white ashes in this park. Most of what I'm finding is blue ash and green ash, so that's what we're going to mostly concentrate on this afternoon. But it does continue up to the sky. It does have a few branches that still look like they're alive, but this tree is probably living on borrowed time. I was able to find a small branch coming off this that had the obvious branch scars or terminal bud and leaf scars of a green ash and not a white ash. That's how I could tell for sure. And here's another medium-sized blue ash right across the way. And this is an area with lots of limestone, so it helps us know what kind of ash trees we can expect to find. The green, the white, and the blue ash in this particular park. And that blue ash still looks as healthy as we can expect for a place that's got an infestation of emerald ash borer. And while we're on the subject of identifying ashes, we have to identify the pest that's doing in many of the green and white ashes. And here's a really large relic of an ash tree, and it's not enough left to really tell, but if I use my rule of thumb about the bark giving way to gentle pressure from my rule of thumb, I'd have to say it's a green ash, and the furrows and diamond-shaped pattern is interrupted. But this guy's long gone, and you can see the tunnels that the larva from the emerald ash borer had made probably 10 years ago when it first became a big problem in this part of western Ohio. Here's another one right here. Again, long gone. Not much we can do to identify a tree like this from what's left. What's left of the bark may not be enough without some buds or something, because white ash and green ash have similar bark. And here's more of our tunnels made by the emerald ash borer larva. The adult beetle actually drills a hole in the bark. I don't see too many on this tree left that would have been evidence that the beetle had been here recently. It's probably been a while. Well, let's do this. We got a green ash right across the trail here that's still hanging in there, and it's got enough left for us to identify it. So no point crying over the spilt milk. We got one tree here that's still hanging in. And, you know, these trees may not go extinct, but they're certainly limited in where you can find them, and healthy ones are even more limited. Again, this has got a lot of moss on it. I'm going to zoom in on this sprout here. So as a tree gets diseased and gets stressed, its last gasp is often to send up root suckers or sprouts from the lower part of the tree to try to make its last attempt to prosper. A little tough to see these on here, but I can clearly see what looks like that little chocolate chip at the top of the leaf scar. The leaf scar is not U-shaped, but has actually got a U-shaped bottom and a flat-shaped top. So it's U-shaped on the bottom and flat on the top, like the letter U that's been filled in. So that's how I'm identifying these ash trees back here. I'm a couple miles from where we started this hike. I'm in a area that's kind of flat with some ravines that go off either side of this flatter area. And there's several more large green ashes that we can use for identifying that I've found a few days ago. Let's go keep looking. And we'll finish this little video series on the winter identification of green ash with the sound of flowing water, just like we started it. I'm high in a bluff above a different stream, but in the same park here, the Fort Ancient State Memorial in Warren County, Ohio. Got one more green ash to look at here. Again, this one's got a lot of moss on it. I don't know what to think of that. Certainly helped me remember that their green ash has green moss on it, but several of these trees have, and that's probably because it's a very deep shade area where, you know, it can be mossy and the trees can withstand it. Again, I'm using the sprouts. Normally a tree this size, 8-10 inches around, wouldn't have branches at the bottom. So again, this tree is trying to survive. It's sending out some sprouts near the base of the tree with hopes of surviving and getting some new leaves going. I don't think it's succeeded at that. These are actually brittle if I try to break them. But again, I can clearly see what looks like a little chocolate chip on the top of the leaf scar, but not in the U-shaped notch like I'd find on a white ash. So what I've been reading is the bark on these green ashes tends to stay textured all the way to the top, even though this one is mostly dead. I believe we've got several examples across this little ravine here of the same type of bark. Again, that tree's completely dead, and I didn't find any sprouts around it to prove to me it was a green ash and not a white ash. So without that assistance, it's a little tricky, but we'll continue our study of the ashes during the growing season this year. The winter identification of white ash is going to have to wait for next winter because I'm running out of winter to do it, and I haven't found too many good teaching examples. So that'll have to wait, and with any luck I can get to a part of the country where these trees have not succumbed to the emerald ash borer, and we can have even better teaching examples in some areas where it's not as prevalent, this damage. But this pest is extending throughout the natural range of these trees, and it's only a matter of time till they all start looking like this, unfortunately. There are some northern locations where the weather gets extremely cold, where it's theorized at least that the emerald ash borer won't reach that area because the extreme cold can freeze them out during the below zero weather in the midwinter months. We'll continue on with these trees in just a few weeks when they're leafed out.